the Short-Term Rental Marketing Podcast. Welcome back. I am Carl Vidal, and I am your host of the Short-Term Rental Marketing Podcast. Today, we've got a very detailed episode and perhaps one of the most important episodes of marketing. And what we're going to be talking about is actually pricing. And yes, pricing is extraordinarily important to marketing and making sure you maximize those revenues. Now, when we talk about pricing, there is so much to uncover. And where do you start at pricing, right? Where do you start your pricing at for a short-term rental? Secondarily, how do you maximize that nightly rate? We're going to discuss these two questions along with a tremendous amount of other details to help you maximize the rates on your short-term rental and make sure you're profitable by maximizing that revenue. This is episode 6 of the Short-Term Rental Marketing Podcast. To see our previous episodes, you can view them in numerous places. You can check them out on Spotify. You can check them out on YouTube under the Irvie Homes page. And also, we do have the Short-Term Rental Marketing Podcast page directly on Facebook. It's growing every week, and I know that all of our users out there are using these tips. I'm getting wonderful feedback from the community on everybody that's utilizing these tips and starting to earn more on their rentals. All right, so first things first. When we talk about pricing, ultimately we are having an economical conversation. And when it comes to economics, for those of you that took economics in either high school or college, you are going to remember there is the supply versus demand, and it is an inverse relationship on the curve. So as you can see here, I've created the standard supply versus demand chart. And as demand increases, so does your pricing, right? As supply increases, your pricing should have to go down because if your pricing is higher than the available demand, then you've got an abundance of supply. And with an abundance of supply, you're not going to be able to charge the same rates. Whereas if you have infinite demand, you would be able to charge infinite amount of money. You can see this every day in just about everything you do, everything you purchase. There's some wonderful videos out there to better understand supply versus demand, but that is the fundamentals of what we're going to be talking about when we talk about short-term rentals. All right, so here we go, and looking at the short-term rental market. I actually took a snapshot of the upcoming spring break in March, right? And this was analyzing one market and taking a look at that, all right? So as you can see by this chart, pre-spring break, there is about 1,200 available units. And just under that, right? Total in the marketplace, if you look up at the top of the chart, we've got about 1,850 short-term rentals in this market. And of those, you've got about 700 booked and about 1,200 are available. Then beginning on about 3/6, we see that there is a sharp increase in demand. We know that because the amount of bookings goes up sharply. We've gone from about 700 units booked to about 1,200 units booked. Now, keep in mind, we are currently in December. This is 4 months out. So we see this spike in demand, right? And we can see it coming and we say, oh boy, that's spring break. We know we need to raise our rates because the demand is going to be there. Now, there's a lot of experts out there that do their pricing on their own. And every day they log in, they queue up their Excel sheets, and they take a look at their pricing, and they make real-time adjustments for that morning not really real time, right? They're only doing it once a day, but they'll make those adjustments and try and figure out how to price their unit. Well, for me, I don't think a human, and I'll repeat this, I don't think a human is capable of measuring demand on a day-to-day basis in a accurate enough fashion to maximize your revenue. And I'll show you what I mean by this. So obviously we know we're going to increase our prices during spring break, but I want you to notice this. On 3/11, right? On March 11th, we see that we have on available supply about 850 units, all right? Versus on, March 13th, that goes down to about 700 units. And on March 18th, there's only 450 units available, all right? Only 450 total homes available for all of this marketplace. Now, that's just with the regular spring breakers coming, right? We still have our regular demand of people traveling for work, the traveling nurses, the doctors, people in the movie industry that are coming. We have regular people that are coming to visit their family. We've got people coming to go to the hospital, right? We've got people coming for other events. We start getting into March Madness, different things, right? So all this is going on in March. It's all eating up this demand, and we see we only have 450 units. Now, I could just say, if I'm pricing this normally or manually, I should say, I'm going to price my home at, say, $250 a night for the 3 weeks of spring break. But I would be losing a lot of money because, as you can see here, on March 11th, I might be priced at, say, $250 a night. But on March 18th, I'm probably right now going to price that at $450. All right. It took me to put this chart together roughly an hour. And we are looking at just 1 month, 1 day, right? When I think about our marketplace over the course of a year, we have all kinds of special events that cause this same fluctuation, right? So here in March, specifically on March 18th, if I price this at, say, $250 and it could go for over $400, I'm leaving at least $150 on the table, right? Similarly, if, we see here on March 24th, demand is ending, right? Spring break's going away. At that point, I need to lower the rates. But you can already see March 27th, there's less availability than there is on March 24th. There needs to be a price difference there to capture the difference in the supply and demand market. So for me, to be successful, to really maximize your money, you need a computer doing this for you 24 hours a day. It needs to read the marketplace, read the demand, and figure out where to price you accordingly. Now, the other thing about this chart is it is only showing you the roughly 1,850 units available in short-term rentals. This does not include the 17,000 hotel rooms that are available here. That's a huge number, 17,000, all right? We don't know where the demand is, but there are pricing softwares out there that do, all right? So we'll talk a little bit more about those pricing softwares later, but in general, all right, if you are looking at doing pricing on your own and you're represented on multiple websites like I coach you to do, you should be on Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, TripAdvisor. You should be on all these websites, Expedia, right? Now you've got to go input this pricing on all of them to maximize your money. That can only be done with software, all right? So with that said, we're going to switch into our pro tips today. And in the pro tips, I promise we're going to get back to these softwares, all right? To price your home out correctly, number one takes a lot of research, right? We need to know everything about the marketplace. We need to find out everything we can about the home, about what's around it, the hotels, what amenities we are offering versus what our competition is offering. We're also going to look at what amenities or attractions might be nearby. Are you near the zoo? Are you near a hospital? Are you near an event center, right? Are you, up by the mountains? Is it seasonal? We need to know these things, right? So you've got to research all of that and really understand it. This should take you hours, if not days, to put it on paper with all this research and figure out everything you need to know about your individual unit and where it stands in the greater marketplace. All right. Pro tip number 2 is realism. I'm not talking about art here. We're not, artists. Maybe you are. I'm not. No one wants to see my drawings. All right. But when I talk about realism, I want you to be real about what your property is. It's funny, I actually see 2 different types of people. I see the people out there that have a property that is mediocre, and they think it's the greatest thing on earth. In their eyes, their property is the Taj Mahal. It is the White House. It is the greatest place in the world you could ever imagine staying. And through the regular consumer's eyes, it's a nice place, but not the top of the line. I also see people out there that have poured a tremendous amount of money into their properties. They take a look at their properties and they see nothing but areas that need to be improved. And because of that, the value in their eyes of their property is very low. These people are typically perfectionists. And, the perfectionists, they lose because they put all this time and effort into their property, yet they don't realize the gains because they undervalue their property in the marketplace and they're actually not charging enough. All right. Need to take a look at your competition. Specifically, I want you to remember, are there hotels? Are there hostels? Are there other short-term rentals in the immediate area? Usually the short-term rentals only make up a little piece of the market. It's these other areas, that are really offering a lot more rooms than you are. They are typically your greatest competition. You need to know your seasons. All right. In New Mexico, where I'm at, we are booked solid, basically March through the end of November. And then we have our shoulder season in December, January, and most of February, right? Look at Phoenix, Arizona. It's almost the complete opposite. They are really going through their shoulder season in the middle of summer. It's over 100 degrees. It's hot. There's not a lot of events going on. It's not a great time to be in Phoenix. But you look at February or even January, let's say, they have golf tournaments. They've got the Waste Management golf tournament, right? I think the most famous party golf tournament there is. They've got Super Bowl parties. They've got bowl games. They've got everything kicking off. Then they, the subsequent months, they start with spring training and everything going on there, right? New Mexico's dead. Arizona is rocking because of that warm weather. They have an inverse relationship. So you need to understand your seasons, and you also need to understand the fluctuations that exist in the pricing based on the season of your market, okay? There's a lot of tools out there to help you understand this, and we are going to talk about those. All right, special events. We just talked about one. Spring break really does qualify as a special event. But beyond spring break, you think about basketball tournaments. Here, about a year ago in Albuquerque, we had the Senior Olympic Games. It was huge. Most people in the city weren't even aware of it, but we had all these athletes and their families all around the world traveling into Albuquerque, New Mexico to compete in the Senior Games. We also had, at that time, an influx of, gathering of nations and other things going on with special events. And then in New Mexico, Albuquerque, probably the biggest event there is the Balloon Fiesta, good luck even finding a room at that time of year. Last I checked, we only have about 400 total short-term rentals available for Balloon Fiesta, right? Your rates need to go up, and you need to make sure you are earning the proper amount of money on your listing during that time. All right. So next up, once you have all that information, we're going to start getting into how to set rates. All right. So for me, I am going to figure out what is my standard rate? What am I typically going to charge for this home? All right. And then I will actually start fluctuating that rate by the seasons and by the special events. But I need to know what the baseline is. Am I charging 150 a night? Am I charging 250 a night? I have some properties that our standard baseline is $400 a night. They're very nice, luxurious places, and they will command that type of nightly rate. But we also have studios. Some of my studios, the standard rate, we're looking at $90. Okay. We're going to use that with these softwares I've told you about, and they're then going to take your standard rate and adjust it based on supply and demand, seasons, all the stuff we just researched in the prior slide. All right, next up, you need to know what your maximum rate is. Now, I was guilty of this. When I first got into the short-term rental marketing business, I thought maximum rate. I do not have a maximum rate. If someone wants to pay me $10,000 for a night, I'm going to book it at $10,000 and I'm going to love every second of it. So I actually got some bookings that were for a crazy amount of money. And then the people checked in and they weren't happy. They saw the marketing, they saw everything great, but I was actually charging a rate that was in excess of the quality of my home. All right. And we're talking about significantly more than I should have been charging. And it actually caused me to eat some bad reviews because I was charging more than the property was worth. And I'm really good at marketing. I can create that need. These people booked it and then they were disappointed, and you don't want to have disappointed guests. So I do recommend having a maximum. What's the most you would pay to stay in your home? You need to know that, and try not to go too far above that because there's a point where you will get bad reviews. All right. Next up, minimum rate. When I think about a short-term rental, I think about risk. If you are charging too little, you are going to get people that will book your place and possibly cause damage, possibly throw parties. They're going to do things in your house, and you are not getting enough monetary reward to offset the risk of taking on a guest. So, what is that for your house? You need to know. I have some homes where our minimum is $300 a night, and I have others that we're looking at $90 a night. I'm really trying to never go below $90 a night because at a certain point, the damage someone causes or just the wear and tear on your property does not produce enough return to offset those damages. So you've got to make sure the pricing is in line to pay you a minimum. There's a point where I would rather be unoccupied than at a low rate. And you'll see a lot of people out there talking about, I'm at 95% occupancy or, these ridiculous numbers. I can promise you this: if you want 100% occupancy, lower down the rate of your place to $5 a night. You're going to be 100% occupied all the time, and you're probably going to lose a lot though. So 100% occupancy is not what you're looking for. You are looking to have a very strong occupancy percentage, but at the right rate. All right. Next up, minimum stays. So minimum stays. This is extremely important, and minimum stays should actually fluctuate depending on how far out we are on the calendar. And I'll show you a calendar here to give you an example. But the minimum stay date, if you are looking, let's say 3 months from now, 90 days out, if someone books a 2-night trip at your house in March, then you can no longer get a renter that's going to stay for 2 or 3 weeks. So you've now blocked your calendar, used up space, and now you can't get someone that's going to stay for a very long time. Whereas the closer we get, let's say I'm 10 days out and I have some availability on my calendar. At this point, I don't care if it's a 2-night stay or a 1-night stay. I want to get that night filled, right? I want to get some heads in the beds and make some money, right? But it's important to have minimum stays that decrease as the dates get closer. So for me, 180 days out, I'm probably not, depends on the house, right? But I'm probably not going to take a reservation that is shorter than 14 days, 6 months out. All right. If you want to book my place 6 months out, I want someone staying at least 2 weeks. And then when I get to say 120 days, that might get reduced to 10-night minimum. When I get to 75 days, I'm going to start lowering that minimum to 7 nights and so on until I get to a certain point. Now, most of my properties, I have a 2-night minimum at all times because you got to arrange the cleaning staff and everything else. But we do have some where we'll take a 1-night minimum if it makes sense for that property. So minimum stays can be extremely important. And I might even do just another episode completely on that to discuss how to stagger your minimum stays and how to maximize getting people who are staying longer and will pay a premium dollar versus people that are just going to, book a couple of days and block off, huge gaps and cause huge gaps in your calendar because of a small reservation. All right. Next up, discounts. All right. I took over a listing from someone else recently, and they were another company in town that does what I do. They basically help people with their marketing, call it a property manager, but for short-term rental. And I saw that they had a discount on this house if you booked it for a month at a time of 50%. And I was like, wow, and they did get a lot of bookings that were for a month at a time. But I want you to think about this, and it's a relationship here that you can think about. If you have how do I explain this? So if you have your pricing, or let's say your occupancy percentage on 100% occupied, right? What are you typically occupied? What's your occupancy percentage? If you're at 85% occupied, then that means you're vacant only 15% of the time. Your discounts for a 30-day stay should never exceed that 15% because you're going to get booked anyways up to the 85% and you're going to do it at higher rates. All right. So if you're charging $100 a night, times 30 days, $3,000, right? And then you're going to multiply that $3,000 by 85. And gosh, now I got to do math in my head on video. I messed this up, but I believe that comes out to $1,550, right? Because you gave a $2,550, sorry, $2,550 because you gave a discount, right? So with this, you did that 15% discount. You're now collecting $2,550. If you discount 50%, you're only collecting $1,500. That is a huge mistake. You're going to cost yourself, at least $1,000 in this scenario because you're going to get people that are going to book your place anyways up to the 85% occupancy, because that's what that particular home does. So you need to know your occupancy percentages and think about that when you're setting discounts. Don't set these huge discounts that are going to cost you money. However, you do want to deal in discounts, because if you can get only one tenant that's going to stay at your place for an entire 30 days, number one, it's guaranteed. And number two, you don't have that turnover, so your operating costs are going to go down, causing you to be more profitable. And we love profit, right? So discounts can be very good. I'll give some further breakdowns on this in the future. We'll probably dedicate an episode to discounting as well. That way we can take a look at that. All right. Finally, when it comes to your pricing, all right, I want you to think about special amenity fees, and really you could call it special category fees. All right. Number one thing that people usually charge for is pets, right? If you're going to have a pet on property, we're going to charge you for it because there's going to be hair everywhere, potential damage, stains possibly in the carpet. And even the hair just by itself, I've got to pay my cleaning crew more to de-hair a property. It is a crazy amount of work to pull out all the dog hair or cat hair from a property. And if you don't do it, you will get bad reviews from the next guest. So it's not something you can say, oh, we did the best we can, right? So we have to charge for that. We have to make sure that that pet fee is going to exceed our cost of cleaning. All right. Other fees that you have out there, a lot of people will charge a resort fee. The resort fee could include access to Wi-Fi or access to the pool, or if you have a community golf course that your people can use for free, you can charge a resort fee to actually make that profitable for you. All right. Think about the special amenity fees that are available or that you have to offer, and then come up with a price. And don't skimp here. Make it worth your while to have that special amenity. Subsequently on here, when we're talking about pricing, please make sure you're taking care of your cleaners and charging an appropriate rate. You can basically, look at it this way. How many hours would it take to clean the property to be perfect? And then, figure, depending on your market, $10 to $15, $20 an hour for that cleaner. People have to survive. So make sure you are charging enough to compensate your cleaning crews. They will take care of your properties. Make sure you're always getting good reviews and being taken care of. All right. Let's talk about tools. All right. We're circling back. We talked about some of these tools at the beginning. Now we're going to talk about some of the tools on this slide here. Let's first talk about research. So I mentioned you need to do a lot of research. So where can you go to do this research? Number one, platforms. When I talk about platforms, I'm talking about Airbnb, I'm talking about VRBO, I'm talking about Booking.com and Expedia. Even Google has so much information here on travel and about the amenities and what other markets are charging, what people in your market are charging. You can look at other people's listing, right? Figure out what's the top Airbnb or short-term rental within 1 hour of me, 1 mile of me. What's the number one property within 1 mile of me? What are they charging? What are they offering, right? How do I stack up versus them? Can I charge the same amount? Do I have the same quality? You have to figure these things out. You will do it with research. Subsequently, there's tools. AirDNA is probably the most utilized tool in the industry. If you go to airdna.co, you can pay them for a market report. It's well worth the money. You will get a breakdown of so much data. And I'm a nerd. If you can't tell, I geek out on this stuff. I love data. I can go in there, crunch the numbers. I can see other listings in detail, what they're earning, what they're not earning, what their occupancy percentages. It is a wonderful tool. There's other tools similar to this. I know Use Wheelhouse just came out with market reports. They're decent. They're not quite as detailed, but they do give some decent information. And then the last option here for research is SurveyMonkey. I love this. I will send out surveys to potential clients, to friends, family, and I will ask them, how much would you pay to stay at this house? Give me a number. What do you think it's worth? What amenities do you want to see, right? I'm going to ask all these survey questions. I'm going to get feedback, and I know it's going to be correct, all right? There's a whole, gosh, I took a entire probably 3 semesters in college on research and marketing research and how to put that together. I can't teach everything on that, but go on YouTube, figure out what you should be asking on these surveys and how to structure the questions so you get honest answers from the people you're surveying. All right. Next up is dynamic pricing. Now, dynamic pricing, we talked to this a little bit about this. Let's get into it. Let me grab a sip here. All right, so dynamic pricing is probably the most important part of pricing to maximize your revenue. If you did all the steps I just talked about, all the pro tips, if you've done the research, you know what your standard rates are, your minimum rates are, your special events. If you know all of this, you're now ready to go. Now, number one, the platforms all offer specialized pricing or, dynamic pricing, if you will. Don't use it. All right. It's not good. It is a race to the bottom. You don't want to use Airbnb's smart pricing or VRBO's pricing. In my experience, you turn it on and they just drop the price of your listing as fast as they can because they want to get you booked, and it's not really their concern if they're booking you at the highest rate possible. Now, this is from my experience. Every now and then I turn it on, check it out. I have not seen them change their algorithms to maximize your revenue. So there's really 3 leaders in the industry that I'm aware of that do a great job of doing pricing. One is Beyond Pricing, one is Price Labs, and one is Wheelhouse. Some of them have been in the industry forever. Some of them are new, but they are extremely professional pricing softwares. They will charge you a small monthly fee. I can pretty much guarantee you the revenue they deliver to you will exceed the monthly fees. I've never lost on this. Let's put it this way. I tell the story all the time. The first time I ever turned it on, I made, I think it was like $70 more a night for my first booking than I would have ever charged. I almost fell out of my seat. My place booked for so much. Yes, I was one of those owners that undervalued my property. The software did not undervalue it. But within the software, you can't just click a button and say it's on. You really need to know all the stuff we just talked about, the minimum stays, the special events, because you're going to actually go in here and customize this software to maximize your revenue. Okay. Wonderful thing to do there. All right. So again, on dynamic pricing, I do suggest using social media and SurveyMonkey to coincide with these and use that research to help you. I probably should have put those on the left row, but it's okay. Use those tools to help you customize the pricing for these platforms. All right. So, that is in a nutshell the pricing game. All right. So when you're thinking about pricing, your job is to charge the most reasonable possible per night that you can. And that price should vary depending on your supply and demand in your marketplace. You need to know what the demand is for your property versus the other properties in your area. You need to know how many people are coming into the area. And to do that, you have to do your research, but you also need a pricing software to help you with this. All right. So I do want to thank you for joining us today. This is the Short-Term Rental Marketing Podcast. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. We thank you for joining us today. Have a great week. Go maximize your profits and make some money, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.